Welcome Tamers, my name is Blue Master, bringing you here today my Gracenovamon deck profile. This was my favorite deck to come out of EX5 this year. I love its whole mechanic of you're basically putting the top Digimon card as your bottom source to gain more effects, so I thought that was pretty interesting, referencing that the sun is setting, then the moon comes out, vice versa. Very cool, clever card design by Bandai. This deck does, however, struggle with consistency, but we are getting new support in BT16. I will be updating this deck along with others that I have when that set comes out, so I believe it will make this deck a lot stronger and a lot more consistent. It'll basically make it complete. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. And starting off with our Digi Eggs, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Sunmon. Out of the 2 Digi Eggs of this deck, I believe this one is the superior one. It has the inheritable where if an effect puts the top Digimon card as your bottom source, you may Digivolve this Digimon into another one in your hand for a reduced cost of 1. It is optional, so you can save that effect for later if you want to build your stack a little differently, but as long as you can follow a certain order, you'll be able to retain turn and still just manage your memory a lot more with just the simple fact of reducing the cost by 1. So pretty cool card. For our rookies, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Lunamon and 4 copies of Coronamon. So these guys, they both have start of main phase effects where Lunamon, by returning a Digimon back to your hand, you can gain 2 memory, and Coronamon, by having a Light Fang or Nightclaw Tamer, you gain 1 memory. They share the same inheritable where by putting the top Digimon card as your bottom source, you gain 2 memory. That's pretty cool, so just gaining memory overall, just to build your stack a lot faster. Although from mid to late game, I like having Coronamon in the breeding area a lot more often because it's going to be hard to have a Digimon on the field by that point because your opponent is already going to know that you have this in the back and you might not be able to take advantage of gaining 2 memory just like that. It's not going to be that easy, so it's better to at least guarantee that you get 1 memory instead of none. But these 2 are still very cool, very useful, so I would recommend using Lunamon at the start of the game and Coronamon from mid to late game. For our level 4s, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Lekismon and 4 copies of Phyramon. Lekismon is the other reason that I decided to build this deck because I love the design of the Digimon overall, especially when I saw it in Cyber Sleuth, although I don't believe that this artwork does it justice, but anyhow. So these 2 are your main searchers where on play or when digivolving, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. With Lekismon, you first add a Nightclaw, then you add a Light Fang or Galaxy card, and with Phyramon, you add 1 Light Fang and a Nightclaw or Galaxy card. So they search out their trait first, then they add their opposite after. So you want to keep that in mind that there are certain cases where you're not going to be able to add 2 cards, but it's always to have these in your opening hand until we get our new support. These are your main searchers, and they have inheritables where on your opponent's turn, Lekismon gives this Digimon plus 2000 DP, and on your turn, Phyramon also gives your Digimon plus 2000 DP. So your red cards are your offense, your blue cards are your defense, so you want to keep that in mind when you're building your stack, but you always want to see these turn 1, especially so you can get your pieces as soon as possible. For our level 5s, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Flaremon and 4 copies of Cressamon. These 2 share the effect where if you have a Light Fang or Nightclaw Digimon and it has 3 or more Digivolution cards, you can reduce the on-play or Digivolution cost of these Digimon by 2. So you pretty much evolve for a cost of 1 or play them for a cost of 5, pretty useful. And on play or when Digivolving, Flaremon deletes an opponent's Digimon with 5000 DP or less. That's very useful because you want to be getting rid of floodgates or anything that's just hindering you, that it's not letting you gain memory or reduce your evolution costs. You want to be getting rid of those as soon as possible. So Flaremon does the job pretty well. And with Cressamon, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon can't suspend. So anything that makes them go sideways, they just can't do it. They can't attack, they can't block, they can't suspend for an effect, anything. Anything that would make them sideways, they just can't do it. Pretty cool and unique way to stun a Digimon. And they also have the inheritable of, well, they have the same inheritable as their level 4s. Flaremon gives 2000 DP on your turn, and Cressamon gives 2000 DP on your opponent's turn. So still more defense and more offense there. Moving on to our level 6s, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Dianamon and 4 copies of Apollomon. These two are fantastic boss Digimon. Starting with Dianamon, she herself is a blocker. When Digivolving or when attacking once per turn, for each evolution card she has, you can trash any one evolution card off of one of your opponent's Digimon. Note that it says any one card. It doesn't say top to bottom like other blue cards do, it's any one card. So against like Machinedramon or Greymon, any protection that they have, you can just get rid of it, because you can get rid of any evolution card. And until the end of your opponent's turn, Digimon that they have that doesn't have an evolution card, they can't suspend. This is also very good against decks like Bloom Lordmon. They like to spam out a lot of little dudes, so they don't have an evolution card, so they can't suspend for their effects. So that is also just very good and just freezing their whole field. And also all turns once per turn, when an evolution card would be trash off of one of your opponent's Digimon, she can unsuspend. So like let's say it passes over to your turn, you can attack, activate that effect again, trash an evolution card, unsuspend, keep her as a blocker, or just attack again. So like that's very useful, very versatile, and yeah, I just love this card overall. Moving on to Apollomon, when Digivolving he has Blitz, so even when the memory passes over to your opponent, he can still declare an attack, and for every 3 evolution cards he has, he gains security attack +1. So like let's say if you manage to build a stack that has 6 cards underneath him, he can attack for security attack +2, making a total of 3 checks. That's pretty good. And in combination with his inheritables, with his red inheritables, he'll be gaining 2000 DP each. And that is good because with his third effect, your turn once per turn, when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, you can delete one of their Digimon with DP equal or less than him. So sitting at 16,000 DP, not much is going to survive that. He is just very strong, very good, and he can be a game ender if you manage to knock off all the rest of your opponent's security before then. Moving forward to our level 7s, we're just going to be playing 2 copies of Gracenovamon. Love this artwork, by the way. So he himself, he DNA Digivolves from Apollomon and Dianamon. It can't be any 2 red or blue cards. It has to be specifically those 2. He himself is blocker and has security attack +1, so mimicking his level 6s. When DNA Digivolving, you can trash any 8 evolution cards off of opponent's Digimon. Then you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon that has equal or less evolution cards than him. Note that it says from opponent's Digimon, not just one. And you can just delete anything that has equal or less sources than him. And you can use that effect again to delete when he attacks. You can't use the trash effect because that's only when he DNA Digivolves. But you can still keep deleting Digimon that has sources equal or less than him by just attacking. And with security attack +1, that is pretty good. And he has an all turns protection effect where if he were to leave the battle area by an opponent's effect, you can trash 2 evolution cards with the same level from him to prevent that. So if you built your stack right, you can at least have that protection effect 3 times. You know, trashing 2 level 6s, 5s, and 4s. That is just pretty good. And with his inheritable still, he's going to be having a lot of DP on your turn and your opponent's turn. So he is just definitely a formidable Digimon, formidable blocker, or just an attacker. Just a very good card all around. Moving on now to our Tamers. We're going to be playing 4 copies of Dual Tamer, Ko and Sayo, and 4 copies of Dual Tamer, Sayo and Ko. So these guys are searchable off of your level 4s. The red one is a Light Fang, and the blue one is a Nightclaw, so that's very good. The red one, they're your memory setter, so you always start your turn at 3 memory, and also on play or during your main phase, by suspending them, you can put the top Digimon card of one of your Digimon as the bottom source, to then Digivolve one of your Digimon into another one in your hand for free. That is pretty good that it Digivolves for free. A side note is that the Digimon that you put the top as the bottom doesn't have to be the one to Digivolve. It can be any one that you have, but a lot of times you're not going to be having more than one Digimon out at the same time with this deck, but definitely something to consider. Moving on to the blue one, Sayo and Ko. When an effect does exactly that, that puts the top Digimon card as the bottom, you can suspend this Tamer to gain 1 more memory. that is pretty good. Even having one of these guys out on the field is pretty good, but of course you always want to have more than one so you can gain as much memory as you can. And they're also the main way that you're going to be playing Gracenovamon in this deck. So they have the effect that the start of your opponent's turn, even before they draw, by playing one Digimon card that is the same level as one of your Digimon that's out on the field, that's Light Fang or Nightclaw, 2 of your Digimon can DNA Digivolve by paying the DNA Digivolution cost. So a better example is that, let's say that you have an Apollomon and it has a Dianamon as one of its sources. Apollomon is level 6, so you can play Dianamon that is also level 6 from its sources out on the field for free. Then those 2 can DNA Digivolve into Gracenovamon. That is pretty good, and then you can activate Gracenovammon's effects to trash sources and then delete a Digimon. That is pretty good. And another application of this card is that the DNA effect is optional. So like if you didn't DNA Digivolve, the Digimon that you played with this effect comes back to your hand at the end of your opponent's turn. So like let's say that you have a Firemon that has a Lekismon underneath. Firemon is level 4, so you can play Lekismon at the start of your opponent's turn for free. Because it is also level 4, then you can do another search. And if your opponent didn't manage to delete that Lekismon, you can return it back to your hand to have another search next turn. So that is very good. Honestly, you have a lot of versatility and a lot of options using this card depending on how you build your stack. But mainly it is going to be your way of gaining just more memory and playing your Gracenovamon. So yeah, they're definitely great, both of them together out on the field. Moving on now to our option cards. I'm playing 2 of their signature option cards, which is Goodnight Moon. This card is searchable off of your level 4s. It does have the Nightclaw traits. This card is actually pretty good because for a cost of 5, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of their Digimon and one of their Tamers can't suspend. And then you can play one of your Tamers that is Nightclaw or Light Fang in the traits from your hand without paying the costs. So basically you freeze one of their Digimon and one of their Tamers and you get a Tamer yourself. That is just very good. One of the best applications I have for this card is going against, like, let's say Shine Greymon. If you stun their Marcus Daemon that likes to promote itself, it can't attack and it can't use its effect, so they can't get a free evolution. Or also against like Terriermon, you can stun one of their blockers and then one of their Tamer cards, like maybe they have a Mimi or a Willis, they're not going to be able to use their effects. So definitely a very good card. I might bump it up to 3, but I have to do a lot more testing. And for the rest of my option cards, all of these are definitely optional. You can train them out for any card that you prefer to use. I will be showing off other cards, other options that you might want to use. For now, these ones I integrated into my deck because I have been struggling against Terriermon decks. That deck is just very good, very strong. It does get annoying on how good it is, so I am using right now these cards to try to have a bit of a chance against that deck. But from here, you have pretty much any freedom that you want to play. So starting off, I am playing 2 copies of Pyrosphere. So with this card, for a cost of 2, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, so another way of getting rid of memory blockers. But if you didn't delete with this effect, you could draw 2 cards. So great consistency there, at least just drawing 2 cards. You at least get to keep them. Pretty straightforward with that card. Moving on to our next option card, I was very happy on how this card performed, and it is Full Metal Blaze. So what this card does is that you return 2 of your opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back to their hand. So pretty much like Gold Rapidmon can't escape this, like you will return it back to the hand. And if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you return one of their level 6 or higher Digimon to the bottom of the deck. That is just very good, very solid. So you can return their Mega Gargomon Ace back to the bottom of the deck, overflow 4. So you pretty much played this card for a cost of 4. And so it is very good that it's returning to the bottom of the deck instead of back to the hand, because returning back to the hand, like you're just gonna have to anticipate it again. It's the same song and dance. So I definitely do like this card. It deals with their field pretty good. You can return their rookies, you can return their Armor Purge, their Gold Rapidmons. It's just very good. I really like how this card performed and definitely would consider it. For our last 2 option cards, I'm playing 1 copy of A Delicate Plan and 1 high-speed plug-in D. This one will definitely become another A Delicate Plan, but I have to do a lot more testing. So with a delicate plan, it's more than obvious that this deck does lose to security bombs, especially since you're going to be having just one stack more than often. And so giving another protection that security effects of option cards can't activate that your Digimon checks, that's just very good, especially with a Polomon, since you're going to be checking a lot of cards and you're going to want to have an additional protection. So definitely like an emergency button to use this. And with high speed plug-in D, while you have a Tamer, you can use this card without meeting its color requirements, but of course having a blue card is not hard in this deck. And so for the turn, one of your Digimon gains jamming, and it can't be blocked by your opponent's Digimon. So that's also very good. A lot of times I did find myself not having enough red evolution cards in an Apollomon. So like I do end up crashing into like a Quartzmon or like an Omnimon that my opponent is playing. So like giving this card, giving the Digimon jamming is very good. It's very useful, at least for like one turn. And it can also help out close out a game because like let's say you're going against Terriermon again, you can't be blocked, so like you can swing for that last attack. And yeah, it's just definitely something to consider. I am gonna end up changing it, but I would recommend it if you're looking for just more protection against security battles. And with a security effect, you know, you just draw one and add this card to your hand. So yeah, just definitely some pretty cool and pretty fun options to consider. So for the rest of the video, I just want to talk about some cards that I was playing before Full Metal Blaze and Pyrosphere that you might want to consider. And definitely one card that I want to be testing in the future. So before Pyrosphere, I was playing 2 copies of Hero of the Skies. We're not playing Cross Hearts, obviously, but basically this card is just cost 2, draw 2, simple as that. I feel like it's just the most consistent way of that. If you just want to keep drawing cards, you can just do that. So definitely a card to consider. Other cards I was playing before were 2 copies of Blue Memory Boost and 2 copies of Red Memory Boost. These cards were easily the worst cards of the deck because of how inconsistent their searches were, because you have so many just blue cards and red cards. Even though I'm playing equal amounts, I found myself just revealing just red cards off of this card and blue cards off of this one. Or even when starting the game, I would open up a Blue Memory Boost, but I had no way to use it because I didn't have a blue card or even a Lunamon to Digivolve in Raising. I would only have a Sunmon, so this card was dead most of the time. So you can definitely use it, but I would definitely not recommend these all that much. But you can definitely use them if you want to. Last but not least, this is a Tamer card that I want to be testing out in this deck. On paper, I feel like it's going to be pretty good, but I do need to practice with it a little more to figure out the ratios. And the card that I'm referring to is the Dual Tamer Matt and Sora. So what makes this card so good in this deck? Well, for starters, it's both blue and red, so your options are always going to be live. That's just already good. At the start of your main phase, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, you gain 1 memory. And if your opponent has 8 or more cards in your hand, you gain another memory. That's just good. That's just very easy to fulfill. So just 2 extra memory at the start of your turn. Well, at the start of your main phase is just very good. And also they have a your turn effect that when one of your blue or red Digimon becomes unsuspended, you can suspend this Tamer to return a level 3 Digimon your opponent has back to the hand. That's good. That's just another way of dealing with memory blockers or any other annoying level 3s that your opponent has. Like let's say if you're going against Terriermon, you can return their Lopmon that gives Alliance back to the hand, or a Terriermon that, you know, that's blocking memory. Like you have options there, and since their effect is at the start of the main phase to gain memory, like if your opponent has, well, they have 7 cards in hand, but they have a rookie, well, okay, I unsuspend my Digimon, suspend them, oh look, you have 8 cards now. So very easy to fulfill, and I feel like this card will go a long way. Just definitely need to test it a lot more. But anyways, that's the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed. To anyone who stuck to the end with me, this was a lot of fun. I will be updating this deck along with a lot of other decks that I have with the new support of BT16. That is the set I'm most excited for this year, and I plan to do an unboxing of it. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, have yourself a great day.